It's with the greatest of pleasures to introduce another platinum sponsor for TutorFest 2025. We talk a lot about growing your tuition business on this podcast, and we all know that teaching online can be one of the highest leverage ways to accelerate growth. But many students and parents are scarred by the awful pandemic era experience they had learning online. The right teaching platform can really help you prove that online education is actually a great, convenient option. Lessons Based is one of our sponsorship partners for TutorFest 2025 and the best way to teach online. It's a platform designed by tutors for tutors to make online teaching as seamless and interactive as possible. With a collaborative whiteboard and library of interactive tools and resources, it helps you transform each lesson into an engaging experience as good as in-person learning. Sign up for a 2-week free trial today and use the code TutorFest25 for 50% off your first 3 months. That's TutorFest25, all caps, no spaces. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Grow Your Tuition Business. Today I thought I'd take a different tack to what I've been doing over the last probably year or so with the podcast, whereas I love turning up and talking about business things like your marketing, your strategy, your tactics, your promotions, your pricing, and all of the main components of running your tuition business. I very rarely talk about the actual stuff that happens within it, because I kind of feel like most of us are okay with those things. However, that said, if you're new to running your business, there are certain things like the marketing, the pricing, how you promote, how you can sell without feeling icky. Those things are important, but there's also like the things around those that make a really good business. So, for example, let's talk about parents. Like how are we onboarding parents? How do we keep them happy as current clients? Now, I've been saying this for a long time. Like I feel that tuition is this weird business where we have two ideal clients and both are just important as one another in terms of like the children you serve or the young people that you work with. It's really important that they get a good service. Like you need to be able to deliver what you say you're going to deliver. If they're coming to you because they want you to solve a problem or at least support solving part of that problem, you need to be able to deliver on that. And if you're really good at that delivery, your business grows through word of mouth. It doesn't mean to say we still don't want to go and promote things to new audiences or try and be more visible for our business. But essentially, if you are good at what you do, word of mouth will be how you grow. I share this story. I've probably shared this story before. I'll share it with you again, and it probably won't be the last time that I share it. But I was talking with somebody I met in the China trip I did with the TTA back in September, and runs a very successful tuition business. His model is quite unique. I won't go into that now, but essentially he's found out, he's been running his business for a long time. He's run the numbers and says every person that they work with ends up bringing in another 6 people. You know, their recruitment's good. They employ great tutors. And because that happens and the service at the point of delivery is very high level, every person that enters the business then brings in another 6. There's no need to advertise if that's the case. However, I still think there is a need to advertise because there's something about being visible for your business, and you might advertise through your current clients. So therefore you create something like flyers that can be sent through WhatsApp or flyers that they can give out to people who might be interested, but you lean into that, your strength. And I think this is something that we should definitely take away from this podcast, right? So when you've got one and you're stuck with, or you feel like you're stuck with, I've just got one client at the moment, which how do I find more? You use that one client to find the next one. And then you use those 2 clients to find the next 2. And then the next 4, find the next 4, and so on. It doesn't take long for it to grow, but that's very much built into some kind of high level customer service and that service level with those children. So how do you get the parents on board? And that's the focus of this podcast. How do you get them to buy into your tuition? I think in some cases, this is how we show up. Like, so are we showing up and having face-to-face conversations in summer fetes, Christmas fairs, those kind of places, or village fairs, or whatever's going on, wherever you might go and meet people. Now, so I'm keeping that bit quite vague for now because that's not really the focus of what I want to talk about. But it's those conversations that we have at the pre-stage of whether they are hiring you or not. So how are you showing up? Like, are you really open? Are you approachable? What kind of information do you give? Do you have a script of some sort? Do you have almost like a, I hate to say this, but some kind of sales patter that you lean into? Are you more off the cuff? Do you ask questions and then listen and then respond to what the parent's saying? Or do you ask a question, wait for the next gap to get your next sales patter out? At this stage, it's so important that we set this up in the right way to attract the right client for you. What do I mean by that? If you go and ask any tutor that's been tutoring for a year or more, somebody, or at least I think at least 90% of tutors will say, oh, I had this client, it didn't really fit well, it worked really well in the beginning, and then this happened, and then they asked me about this, and they didn't like my answer, and then it created a bit of tension, or it added more workload to me. It's not really how I want you to run my business, because somebody's put some sort of a demand on you that perhaps it wasn't set out from the initial kind of onboarding process. And an onboarding process doesn't have to be complicated. An onboarding process is where we know a parent is interested. They're saying, yes, I'd like to hire you as a tutor. This is a session I'd like to book into. And then you take the responsibility and go, great, this is the information that I now need. This is what I want you to fill out. Or I'd love an onboarding call with you. I've got a few questions I'd like to ask you just to make sure we're putting you into the right group, just to make sure that we cover X, Y, Z, so make you aware of the terms and conditions, all the, I would say, like the critical bit right at the beginning, because we need to make sure that they agree to our terms and conditions, our payment terms, our cancellation terms, because otherwise it's going to feel uncomfortable at the stage where we need to maybe apply the terms and conditions. If we haven't spoken about it up front, it becomes a little bit more awkward than what it needs to be. Yes, it's probably going to be awkward in the moment, but not as awkward as you turning up and saying, well, there were terms and conditions. Did you not read them? And then they can say, well, you never made me aware. And yes, it's their responsibility, but how many of us look at terms and conditions, get on the mouse wheel or scroll on our touch screen, like iPad or laptop, and we just go, yeah, yeah, yeah. We scroll through them. Yes, continue. We don't really connect with them because they are, particularly the ones online, are just convoluted, aren't they? They're stretched out because they've got a lot of legal terms in them that we wouldn't understand if we were going to read them anyway. Or maybe some of us would if we, or maybe we would, I say some of us, maybe we would if we actually spent time reading them, but we don't want to spend an hour reading terms and conditions when we just want to get to the thing that we actually want. It's no different for parents coming to us. So what can we do at this stage? We probably don't want to go through all of the terms and conditions, but what are the key things? I mean, I think I've said them out loud already. How are we paying? How do we cancel? Right, they're probably the top two. Because that, if we make those things clear, what are the terms around cancelling? If we make those things clear, when those things come up, if they come up, well, the payment stuff will definitely come up because we definitely want them to pay. But they might question it. But that's where they question it, not later down the road when they receive an email from you saying, oh, I didn't realize I had to pay by direct debit. I don't want to do that. Or I don't want to pay a month in advance. Why are you making me do this? We don't want to be having that after the sale and the closing bit. So on board at that point. Now, if there are questions here or there are objections, you can answer them. If it's not a right fit, we part company. And we need to be okay with that. Now, I know that if you're starting out brand new, this is going to feel, oh my God, but I need that client. I need the money coming in because I've got to get to a certain amount each month. And so you have a choice. What do you compromise on if you want to compromise, if that's part of your business plan? But if you don't want to compromise at this stage, and an experienced tutor will know what they are prepared to compromise and what they're not. For example, I tend to say to everybody, I don't give them a choice about direct debit. I just go, right, your direct debit's here. This is how you work it out. Here's the link. So I don't enter into a conversation around it. However, there will always be a few people who go, oh, do you know what? I would prefer not to pay by direct debit. They would prefer to pay through an invoice. And I go, I'm fine with this as long as it's a half-term invoice paid up front. So therefore, my admin time for that person is 5 minutes, 6 times a year. And as long as they pay in advance, I'm all happy. Now, in most cases with me, that's worked really fine. There have been the odd few over the last 6-7 years where it's been a pain, hence why the majority do direct debit. And it's not, it kind of feels like, I'm going to use that horrible word, non-negotiable. It feels like a non-negotiable with the onboarding. Because I'm like, right, we do payments via direct debit, month in advance. The first date is here. This is what it works out to be. This is why it's this amount, because that's the tricky thing with direct debit. But then that leads us into like the cancellation policy, which is I don't offer refunds. So if you can't make it, let me know. We can always get you into another group or make it up somewhere else. Or if you can't, come and chat with me. We'll see what we can do. And usually there's a way of either smoothing it over or we just accept that we can't do that. In the same way, that's what they do with their football club, swimming club, dance club, badminton club, cricket club, right? They pay for those sessions. And whether they're there or not, they pay for them. This is a sponsored ad for TutorFest 2025 from AE Publications. If you're a tutor, you'll know just how much time and admin it takes to run your business, especially as you take on more pupils. But more students shouldn't mean more stress. That's where AE Publications comes in. For over 25 years, AE Publications has been the go-to resource hub for tutors preparing children for the 11 plus and supporting Key Stage 2 maths and English. Whether you're teaching online or in person, their structured step-by-step materials are designed to support your entire scheme of work, making planning and progress tracking much easier. Their comprehensive range includes maths, English, verbal and non-verbal reasoning, all delivered through workbooks, test books and test packs, so you can guide your students from learning to mastery with ease. Ordering is quick and simple at aepublications.co.uk, and once you set up a tutor account, you can access discounts of up to 35%. So if you're a tutor or thinking about tutoring to boost your income, head to aepublications.co.uk and explore their full range of high quality resources. Let's get back to the episode. I found though, like I was really scared of that conversation, but nobody's questioned it. Nobody. The only objection I get is that, I don't want to pay by direct debit. Can I do via invoice? And I'm okay with that. If it doesn't work, we have a conversation further down the line and say, you haven't paid in advance. Can you make sure it's paid by this date, please? And usually that's enough. And in fact, most of the issue is with me and my own admin time, not sending out the invoice on time. It's usually my mistake. So I feel like at that stage, that's quite an important conversations to have, and that you can also draw out further objections, which is what you want, because it's the objections that people have that create issues further into the relationship. So these conversations are really important. Okay, but let's say you've done all of that now, and we still want to make sure we're in this, we acknowledge we're in this unique position where we want to make sure we serve our children and the young people we work, because that means we get more clients. But we also need to make sure we're keeping in contact with our current parents. Now, my current parents, if they listen to this podcast, would probably roll their eyes and go, yeah, okay, Rich, because you're really good at that, aren't you? In the most sarcastic way. I think like this year, I found it really difficult with keeping in contact. My mind's been in other places, like with Tutors Who Thrive, and I feel like that's part of the business that's been really tricky to stay on top of. So what am I doing next year? Well, I've implemented it now, but I've gone, right, I need some help with this. I can't carry all of this on my own. So I've got a VA and I have somebody who does some admin work for me. And I've said, like, this is your role. I want more staff leaving the business. Let's set up a process. I know what we cover and when we cover it. I'd like to make sure the parents know that, because it gives them more understanding. It gives them clarity about what we're doing and when. Now, my tuition is Kent Test, so it's 11 plus. It's linear. Like, there are certain things we just have to cover. So I might say, for example, in September, from week 1 to week 3 or 4, I'm covering XYZ. So I'll do English comprehension, just as an example. Now, I will say I'm covering this, and this is like the question types that I'm covering. However, there's always a little caveat and room for personalization within that session. So I make sure that's communicated. So, for example, if a child's coming into tuition and they're just settling into year 4, year 5, depending on the year they're in and coming to tuition, if they say, Rich, I'm really struggling with this in English, or the grammar in English, or this happened in maths today, I'm going to make sure there's at least 5 to 10 minutes where we can look at what they're struggling with so we can make a plan. Because in that moment, because a lot of it's small groups, I'm not going to be able to make it up on the fly, but give me some time. I'm going to be able to look at that and next week build in a little bit more time for it, or at least record something for them that I can send to the parent. Now, that's me in the moment being able to think on my feet, look at what they're bringing, make sure that I'm dealing with I suppose their pain point in that time, which I don't like using that with young children. But then I actually communicate like the solution through the parent. Okay, I'll go straight to the parent and say, look, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I recommend. Might be a link. It might be like I've got something here. Just wait around at the end. I'm going to photocopy it for you. But what I'm going to do is record you a quick video right now. Or later on, I'm going to send it to you. I'll give you access to it. And this is where the idea for my online school, not an online school really, not like in the same place as something like UK education run by Sid or Minerva or those kind or the actual online school. It's called that. Not in that sense, but essentially an online portal where there's a lot of resources there. That's where that idea came from because I was doing some of these videos. I was like, could I store them? Could I create some passive income around this? And I don't make a ton of passive income from it, but it's quite a good revenue stream and it adds value to my tuition business. Hence why there's a workshop on this, because I know there's people who would like to offer this, but don't quite know where to start. And that workshop is going to be available at the end of June. So how do we keep both of these ideal clients happy in our relationship, in our business relationship? And I know we don't have a business relationship with our children. It probably doesn't feel like a business relationship with our parents, but it is. And we need to remember that like they are buying a service from us. So we need to make sure we serve them. So I want you to think about like, how do you onboard? That's point number one. And then how do you communicate once they're in your business? And then it's like that purpose behind the communications. That communication straight up the onboarding is one area. How many objections are you answering? How are you making sure that you are asking the right questions here so that it's less awkward later on if there is a cancellation or maybe a question around like the refunding a lesson, for example. That if we deal with this at the beginning, it's less awkward over here. I'm not saying it's not going to be complicated or it's going to be or make you feel awkward or drain a little bit of confidence sometimes as well, but less so if we've had these conversations, because you just revert back to them and say, well, right at the start what we did say was this and this, and you agreed to it, hence why now this is happening. Like, this is why I'm not refunding you the session, or this is why there is a 2-week cancellation window, because it allows me to, from a business perspective, get into the waiting list, or helps me if I haven't got a waiting list, go out and advertise that there's a space now. So there's like protection there, and that people more often than not will accept those terms. I'm not saying you might waive some of these things, because sometimes we do. We're nice people, and we listen to what's happening and we respond in the moment. But it's less awkward if we've dealt with it up front. Now they're your client. The point too is like, how do we keep them happy? How do we communicate about each session? Are we writing a report? Are we standing with them at the door if you're face to face and just saying, this is what we covered today, this is what we found easy, this is what we found difficult, and here's a bit of advice? How are we imparting that knowledge that we've just learned from the session? I'm not saying you have to do this every time, because I don't either. I don't do this every single time. Often I just say what we've done in the group, and then I say to parents, if you've got any questions, please message me. I've got my number, so we can do through WhatsApp. And I feel like that is containing. And this is the important part, right? We want to make sure we help our parents feel contained, that what we're delivering is working. Because they might not know. They might not be, what we're doing at tuition might not be working at school yet. It might be too soon for that confidence to have grown. But how will parents know that unless we tell them? What are we seeing in front of us? If you're further ahead in your journey, like, so I've over the last year have taken quite a big step back from the face-to-face tuition. So I only do 2 evenings a week. And so therefore, I've still got parents messaging me saying, well, how are they getting on? I'm like, well, I don't know, because my tutors are working with them. Some of my tutors are quite new. They're teachers, but they are new to like this way of working. And so some of them still treat the sessions like they are at school. So there's a little bit of unlearning around school going on. So I'm having to then guide the tutors to do this as well. So there becomes more of a management and leadership kind of element to my role. And it's like showing them like, actually, it's okay to go and talk to your parents about what you've seen, and you can be really honest. They are buying in, so that honesty is really important. Anyway, I'll leave it there. I felt like that was a bit of a different tact to the to the podcast this week. It's very much more of the technicalities of the actual session itself and how to keep people happy. Still business related, but very much within the element of a tuition session. I hope you found it useful. As usual, there are like the ways to work with us. We've got Tutor Fest. Tickets are selling fast. We sold our 100th ticket this week. So that means there's 20 left as the time of recording this. We've also got a £20 workshop, the final £20 workshop before we put the price up in July. And there's a membership that's being relaunched. We've got things in the pipeline for course for the like the signature course, but also other little bits coming out. So keep your ears to the ground, keep your eyes wide open. Lots of ways to come and work with us, heading your way over the next kind of 4 to 6 weeks. But I hope you found this interesting. Let me know if you have anything else to add. I love replying to your messages via the podcast. I always find it like a huge amount of gratitude to those who listen and then respond as well. It's amazing. But take care, everybody. Have a great day, whatever you're doing, and I'll speak to you soon. See you later.